Hi everyone. I thought today I would show you a little bit behind the scenes on Ready Mode, which is a dialer that we use. And that way you'll be more comfortable with it if you decide that you would like to purchase it. Personally, I think this is the best dialer that's out there on the market. You can actually call with 12 lines to start out with on here. And there's actually a way on it that I will show you here as we progress that you can go from basically that up to about 28 lines. So you could actually have as many as 28 lines dialing for you if you decided that you would like to have that. Now, why would you want 28 lines dialing for you? Well, the reason you would want that many lines dialing for you is because you don't have hardly any downtime. With 28 lines dialing, you almost always have somebody on the line. And that takes away from the time that you're not really doing anything and that you're just more or less waiting on somebody to answer. But this is what I use for making cold calls, which is basically just calling people that haven't raised their hand or nothing, saying that they want to sell. It's just calling through as many numbers as what I can, trying to see if there's anyone potentially that might be looking to sell, or potentially maybe down the road getting a relationship with somebody that might be looking to sell at some point in the future. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive in. The first screen here that I'm showing you is called the dashboard. As you can see here, that's where your files are. It's where your settings are, where your leads are. So let's go ahead and start out going to settings here. And I'll show you the agent options. So then you'll want to go to custom fields here and edit your call result. What this does is it brings up the different dispositions that you're going to use for your call. So anytime you talk to somebody and your call ends, you'll have to mark it with one of these dispositions before you can move on, and you'll need to double click on it. Now, what I would also like to show you is, say they're not interested, just for an example. And each of the dispositions are going to have the same thing that I'm going to show you. But I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on not interested again. And you can see how it's set up in here. It shows that it's going to all the campaigns. So that means no matter which campaign I'm in the system, it's going to go there. It's going to end the call for me when I double click on that, which is fine because the call's already going to be ended by the time I get over here anyway. And it's going to add it to the DNC list, which is the do not call list, for a period of 6 months. After 6 months, what it does is it just removes it from the do not call list and puts it back in the queue. So if I'm still calling this list in 6 months, which most likely I will be, then in 6 months, it's going to put it back in the rotation. And I'm going to be touching base with them again. Now, that's probably the furthest line that you're going to want to have away from when you call them and they say they're not interested, because people change their lives after 6 months time period. So this allows you to get back in touch with them, even if they said they weren't interested before. And by that time, they're not going to even remember who you were. They're not going to have any recollection that you called them. You're probably going to be calling them from a different phone number because you're going to be wanting to check your phone numbers quite often. Next thing I want to show you here, setting BOP. And this gives you some different deals here as well. But the one I want to really show you here is the phone numbers, caller IDs. This is where you're going to order your numbers. You're going to click this order number, and then it's going to give you a box up here for your area code. And you're going to type the area code that you're interested in calling. Like for example, with mine, I've got the 561 area. And then you're gonna wanna make sure that you highlight this. And you're gonna have the 4-2, and you're gonna go inbound Q. Because that allows you to dial from it. Now, you're gonna wanna go in there pretty much every day when you're starting up your session, and call your cell phone or call another phone that you've got control over. And this is to make sure that you don't have it going to a spam folder. If it's showing up for you as spam, it's showing up for your prospect as spam. So you'll want to go in here and you want to highlight it, and then you're going to delete the selected number. Now I'm not going to delete it right now because I just did this earlier today. And so this is a fresh number that I haven't even used yet. And I've already checked it after purchasing it just to make sure that it doesn't show up as spam. All right, so let's go to leads. And then you're going to go over here to the campaign, is where we'll start out at. And this is going to show you all the campaigns that you have that are up and running. So for me, I've got the Palm Beach area because that's the area I'm in. You'll have whatever area that you're in. I've also got Florida agents in here because I'm a broker. So when I'm making calls, sometimes I might be willing to prospect just to agents and see if I can recruit them into my company. Because, let's face it, I'm always hiring. And I want to show you over here on queues again. This is going to show you where you're at on this particular list. You've got the not called and the called. So you can see I've been working this list a little bit since I loaded it. And I've called about 4,000 numbers since I opened it. Now this is a fairly recent list I've got in here because I did just change it out and make sure it was up to date. Did some other things to it, so I changed out my numbers. That's why that seems to be a little bit on the low side. So then I'm going to click this, and you're going to see that you've got the members here that are in it. You're going to look at it and see the manager, and yours is probably going to look just like mine. You can view your leads, and you can come over here to configuration. Now in the configuration, you're going to see the queue speed, then go to edit speed. This is where you're going to change how many lines that you're dialing from. Now this can go all the way from 1 to number 12. So set up to 12 lines. Now the other part of this is for enable automatic speed. And this is where this dialer is just exceptional. And the reason that I absolutely love the dialer. And that is that you can set the abandon threshold at whatever percentage you want. And when you're below that threshold, you can dial faster. And believe it or not, guys, this system can actually get up to 28 lines calling. That's 28 to 8. So it's a very fast system, and you're going to have very little downtime when you're putting this into full motion. Now, if you decide that you don't want to abandon that many calls, you can always put the thing in here for dial slower when above the threshold. Now, I don't even put the slower one in there because I don't want it to slow down. I like having the fast-paced type system. The more time that I'm not talking to people is more time I'm wasting in between calls. So I want it constantly calling people. And when you're going through here, what that happens with the ones that don't answer, or the ones that answer and you don't have the ability to pick up on because you're on another call, the first one you'll be talking to the others will end up getting dropped. Now, it doesn't call it back or nothing like that, so you just get it in the next rotation. And, by that time, you're going to have your number changed because you'll be coming up as spam by the time you hit that. So, my list right now has almost 20,000 different phone numbers or people in that. So by the time I get through even close to being able to redo the list and call these people again, my phone number is going to probably be changed several times because I check it every day, and it seems like probably every day or every other day or somewhere in there when I'm making a ton of calls that I end up having to change my phone number out. And that's what's so great to have this system where I can do that pretty easily. Now down here on the bottom with reports, this is another area that you might find interesting. Is you can actually go to call logs and it'll bring up all the people you've talked to. Now this for me is just for people I've talked to today. And you can see that over here, you've got a place where you can play the recording back. And so you can actually go back and listen to your calls. Now, why would you want to go back and listen to your calls? Well, there's a couple of different reasons that come to mind right off the top of my head here. One is if you happen to miss something that they said, for example, if they gave you an email address and you don't really remember the email address, you can go back here and you can listen to them say it again. You can also listen to your calls and critique yourself on how you did on the call. This allows you to improve when you're making calls. So there's definitely a great reason to be coming in here and listening to your calls. Now you can also, of course, send it to your coach or whatever if you happen to have a coach, and they can listen to your recording and give you feedback on it. You can download the calls to your desktop. So anyway, those are some of the main features of this system that I use on a daily basis called Ready Mode. If you have any other questions, let me know and I'll be happy to help you guys out.